The Ontario-Canada leg of the Lake Superior Circle Tour was 478 miles, just over one-third of the total distance. We now cross the United States-Canada border at Pigeon River, and in less than a mile, the North Star State, the land of 10,000 lakes, the Gopher State, Minnesota, invites us to pull into the Welcome Center and Grand Portage State Park. The park has a 120-foot waterfall, the tallest in the state, though it is on the border with Canada and thus partially in Ontario on the Pigeon River. The park is designed for day use only, a lovely opportunity for a stop to take in the spectacular scenery, photography, hiking, and a picnic. The Grand Portage Band of the Lake Superior Chippewa and the state of Minnesota have a unique partnership at Grand Portage State Park. In 1989, the band collaborated with the state, Cook County, and the Parks and Trails Council of Minnesota to create this state park on tribal land. It is the only U.S. state park jointly managed by a state and a Native American band. We can't forget our original understanding of our relationship to the earth and to the land. John Morin, Grand Portage Band of the Minnesota Chippewa Tribe, 2011. Just a few minutes south from the Welcome Center, we arrive at the Grand Portage National Monument, the Gallery and Information Center. Grand Portage National Monument's collection includes beautiful examples of 20th century Minnesota Ojibwa artwork. These pieces use traditional designs in birch bark, leather, and sweetgrass, decorated with floral patterned beading, embroidery, and delicate porcupine quill work. Several of the objects featured in the gallery are from the monument's Karen Daniels Peterson collection, which contains items from nearly every Ojibwa band in Minnesota. Mrs. Peterson and her husband, Sidney, collected items between the 1940s and 1960s and donated over 130 objects to the monument in 2004. The paintings and colorful murals depict life as it was in and around the Grand Portage Depot. Grand Portage was referred to in early years as the Great Carrying Place. In the 18th century, it was the link between the Pigeon River and Lake Superior, a vital connection between Montreal and the fur-bearing lands to the northwest. Starting in 1731, thousands of tons of furs and trade goods were carried across the Grand Portage by the voyageurs. Each summer, a great rendezvous was held on these grounds, and today it continues to be celebrated annually during the second week of August. The event is named the Rendezvous Days and Powwow. It is a time when Grand Portage comes alive and reflects on its rich heritage. The powwow is sponsored by the Grand Portage Band of Lake Superior Chippewa, Ojibwa. The settling of the Canada-U.S. boundary left the post in American territory. Not wanting to remain in the United States, the post was abandoned around 1803, and the Northwest Company relocated the following year at Fort William at the mouth of the Kaministiquia River. John MacDonald in 1793 said, "All the buildings within the fort are 16 in number. 6 of these buildings are storehouses for the company's merchandise and furs, etc. The rest are dwelling houses, shops, compting, and mess house." Daniel William Harmon in 1800 wrote a log. June 14th, Saturday. Mr. J. Clark and I placed in the general shop where we deal out to the people dry goods, rum, flour, sugar, butter, and meat, etc., etc. June 15th, Sunday. The laboring people have all day been employed in making and pressing packs of furs to be sent to Canada. July 4th. In the daytime, the natives were allowed to dance in the fort, and to whom the Khoi made a present of 36 gallons of shrub. Shrub consisted of orange or lemon juice, sugar, and rum. The National Monument is open all year round to explore the exhibits, trails, and events. All-American Highway 61 in Minnesota, commonly referred to as the North Shore Scenic Drive, is an extensive vacation destination all on its own. There are countless destinations along the coast, inland, and on the water. 7 state parks are located along Highway 61, beautiful coastal towns that offer something for everyone, whether it is just for a few hours, a few days, or several weeks. Sites include forests, wildlife, cliffs, beaches, and numerous boating opportunities. Camps, lodges, restaurants, antiques, specialty shops, small museums, and the list goes on and on. Nature lovers, waterfall hunters, and hikers will find that along the 148 miles between the Canadian border and Duluth, there are 32 creeks and rivers that are near or intersect Highway 61 and 84 waterfalls cascading their way to Lake Superior. Accessibility is rated from easy access right off Highway 61 to difficult trails well inland. A highly recommended guide to many of these locations is Waterfalls of Minnesota's North Shore and More, a guide for hikers, sightseers, and romantics. Researched and written by Eve and Gary Wallinga, it has comprehensive descriptions of all the trails, waterfalls, and many interesting anecdotes of their journeys. Gooseberry State Park. Soon after President Franklin Roosevelt took office in 1933, he created the Civilian Conservation Corps. Well into the Great Depression, state and federal agencies offered employment for unmarried young men between the ages of 17 and 23. At its peak in 1935, more than 500,000 Americans worked outdoors in camps across the nation. Young men enrolled for at least 6 months and sometimes remained for 2 years. Each received room and board plus $30 a month. All but $5 was sent directly home to aid their families. When the state of Minnesota purchased the first 628 acres for Gooseberry Falls State Park in 1933, there was no means to develop it. By a stroke of good fortune, the Civilian Conservation Corps was created the same year. Many of the trails and facilities remain in use today. Gooseberry Falls State Park is a hotspot for tourism right along Highway 61. A must-see look over the bridge presents waterfalls on both sides. A short walk on easy, well-maintained trails up or down river showcases the upper, middle, and lower falls. And for those more inclined, a further loop trail takes you to a 5th waterfall. Gooseberry Falls State Park is open all year round. The winter scenes are extraordinary, in particular along the cross-country ski trails. The Split Rock Lighthouse Visitor Center greets you with the following message. Split Rock Lighthouse was built in 1910 on this high and lonely rock and served as an aid to Lake Superior navigation until 1969. The lake and its rugged shore have provided a spectacular setting for the lives of generations of Minnesotans, Indian families, trappers, and fishermen, loggers and road builders, miners and lighthouse keepers, and visitors like you. Being here today, you have become part of this place and its history. On November 28, 1905, the temperature dropped to 13 degrees below zero. Winds were clocked at more than 60 miles per hour, and waves exceeded 30 feet. 9 ships were wrecked along Superior's rocky North Shore, and 11 men perished in the icy waters. This single storm damaged 29 ships in all, 1/3 of which were the uninsured property of the U.S. Steel Fleet. In 1907, a delegation led by the president of the steamship company successfully lobbied Congress, who in turn appropriated $75,000 to build a lighthouse and fog signal near Split Rock. Split Rock Lighthouse was lit up in 1910. At the first sign of fog, smoke, or snow, the horn would bellow out over the water. In the early 1900s, it would have sounded like this. When in use, the foghorn sounded 2 or 3 times an hour. The lighthouse tower is 54 feet high and sits atop a 130-foot-high cliff. For nearly 60 years, the light flashed each night at 10-second intervals. The light was visible from over 20 miles away.
The magazine itself was first created in 1979, which is kind of an amazing history because if you know anything about Duluth, the late 70s, early 80s is when kind of the bottom fell out of Duluth's industrial base. And a lot of plants and other things like the U.S. Air Force Base left. And so the community population dropped considerably. And there was, it was no joke, there actually was a billboard that said, the last people leaving the town, please turn out the lights, because there was a concern about how much of a migration there was away from Duluth. And this is another interesting thing about the draw of Lake Superior. At that point, one of the things the city itself did in terms of remaking itself and revitalizing itself was it turned toward the water. It looked toward Lake Superior as a resource for drawing other people, for visitors. This has always been a visitation area, although a lot of people are traveling up the North Shore on their way to other parts of the lake, but it's always been a draw of people to come and visit. And so Duluth at that point, one of the things it did in its makeover was to turn toward the water. And a lot of cities around the lake since then have done that sort of thing. Thunder Bay is a perfect example of that. The revitalizing of the waterfront around Thunder Bay is amazing. And it creates not just a community resource and interaction with the lake, but a visitation draw for people to come and look and see what's happening on the waterfront. And both in Duluth, in Thunder Bay, but also in places like Marquette, the bigger cities, Sault Ste. Marie, you'll find a lot of events and festivals centered on the waterfront. So it's bringing people again together around the water, which is, of course, as you found out from Fort William and from Grand Portage, that is the history of the lake, that water is the draw that brings us together.
It has been said Duluth resembles San Francisco, with its steep hills and streets intersecting one plateau above another. The high-speed chase scene in Steve McQueen's classic film Bullet could have easily been filmed here. The views from Enger Tower are panoramic of the Twin Ports, Lake Superior to the north and south, and Duluth's famous landmark, the aerial lift bridge, which spans the ship canal into the Duluth Superior Harbor. Minnesota was famous for its soft ore mines, which produced a significant portion of the world's iron ore for more than a century. Although the high-grade ore is now depleted, taconite mining continues, using processes developed locally to save the industry. The mining boom created the Port of Duluth, which continues to be important for shipping ore, coal, and agricultural products. The aerial lift bridge, earlier known as the aerial ferry bridge, is a landmark in the port city of Duluth. It was constructed in 1905 as the United States' first transporter bridge. Only one other was ever constructed in the country, the Skyride in Chicago. The span was converted in 1929 to 1930 to a vertical lift bridge. Also rather uncommon, although there are 6 such bridges along Ontario's Welland Canal and continue to operate today. The bridge can be raised to its full length of 135 feet in about 1 minute and is raised about 5,000 times per year. As ships pass, there is a customary horn-blowing sequence that is copied back. The bridge's horn is actually made up of 2 Westinghouse air brake locomotive horns. Long, short, short is known as the captain's salute and is the most common of the ship signal exchanges. The lift bridge and the shipping canal is a major attraction for tourists and local residents as well. There is a large following of ship watchers, trackers, videographers, and photographers. The movement of these gigantic lakers and ocean vessels are mesmerizing, and in good weather, large crowds gather to watch and wave as they come and go. Just a few yards from the lift bridge is the Lake Superior Maritime Visitor Center, a member of the Lake Superior Marine Museum Association. The museum is operated by the United States Army Corps of Engineers. The exhibits demonstrate the history and operations of the Upper Great Lakes commercial shipping and the aerial lift bridge. There are 3 historically accurate replica cabins and a pilot house from typical ships on Lake Superior in the years past. A 3-story steam engine, 50 scale models, and many interactive displays are available for visitors to explore at no cost. Donations are accepted. Along with the aerial lift bridge, the 3 lighthouses in Canal Park provide ample photo opportunities for locals and visitors alike. They are known as the North Pier Lighthouse, the South Breakwater Light, and the Duluth Rear Range Light. The Rear Range Light provides a focal point by which to guide the ships in. The light stands taller than the South Breakwater Light, and when used together, they help navigators establish range and line up a direct course to the opening between the 2 piers. Duluth is absolutely charming in its tourism, attractions, industry, waterfront, and people. It is a little big city that has that small town feel. A strange thing to say amidst the enormous industrial harbor, but everything seems to dovetail together, making a visit, or several, an absolute pleasure on the Lake Superior Circle Tour.